pre-season started 6 weeks ago, so we're on week 6 now. Week 6. So Owen's been in from the start because obviously Saracens season finished in the semis, and the top 14 season ran on a bit longer. So you have to give a mandatory 4 weeks off in the top 14. So Owen was ready to go when we started pre-season, which is mid-July. And he moved across. His family's currently, well, they moved across now as well. So he has been training. He had a bit of a neck injury. It's not even major really, but anyway, kept him out of a couple of the pre-season games, but he's good to go. He's trained well and he's fitted in really well.
Awesome. How much have you sort of kept in touch with him, obviously, since your days as England head coach?
I didn't really. No. So obviously I went to Leinster and Saracens during the, that time, and we were rivals really. And rugby is, I guess it's a sport like any other sport that even if you've got close friends in other teams, it's hard to maintain the same relationship.
Sure.
And obviously he was progressing under Eddie Jones and Steve, and I was busy doing what I was doing, coaching Johnny Sexton. So our paths crossed, obviously, mainly through Europe. But obviously having reconnected with him, it feels like a very easy relationship to pick up. We started together in 2012. I got the interim job, and Owen was in the first squad, 20 years old.
Yeah. Was he a bit of a coach's dream, Stuart, insofar as he all struck me as attitudinally, he's a sort of ultimate pro. I mean, he, on the field, he's that mix of fire and ice and all that stuff. We know he occasionally hits someone a bit high or whatever it is, but he seems to be as a trainer and an all-round contributor to a squad, pretty much the ideal kind of character.
Yeah, he is, and he brings obviously a wealth of experience now. In addition to if you go back 12 years to England 2012, he brought that sort of leadership element. The knowledge of the game was very well developed at that time. Obviously, his skill set was strong. His mindset was incredibly strong. But you layer on 12 years of experience, both internationally and with Saracens and the British Irish Lions. So, he's very, very similar to, like, I joined Leinster in 2016, and I think Johnny would have been 31, 32, around the same age, Johnny Sexton. And he's very similar to Johnny in that regard. Like, he brings a huge amount of everything: leadership, technical ability, mindset, and he loves the game. He loves training. He loves the sport. He loves everything about it. I'm absolutely certain he'll go on to be a coach as well. He's a great addition to the team for sure.
I know no other number 10s are available to you, but for the purpose of this question, let's pretend that he's a number one choice. You're coaching with Freddie Michalak, who back in the day was known as the anti-Wilkinson, because they were poles apart in terms of style. That was how the great rugby population perceived it. You could call Owen the sort of anti-Russell a little bit, couldn't you? I mean, there aren't too many similarities, superficially speaking, between the two approaches to the game. How big a shift in a club environment does it involve going from a 10 like Russell to a 10 like Owen?
Well, you've got to remember that Finn left before I arrived. So last year we had Tristan Tedder and Antoine Gilbert as the 10s. And I'd say, actually, I mean, I didn't coach Finn, but having watched him play and watching him play for Bath, the influence he's had, yes, he's slightly different in how he plays, but when I watched Saracens during that period, do you remember when they lost against Leicester in the Premiership final? And the following year, Saracens played some amazing rugby, and Owen was the heartbeat of that. So I think he's got the adaptability to play attacking rugby. Obviously, there's no doubt about that. Sometimes Owen has to, fit into what the coach wants, and so from a Racing point of view, we actually just needed someone to fill that void in quality at 10, because when I first arrived, Bun Barrett was linked to the club. And then after Bun Barrett, Marcus Smith was close to arriving. And now Owen's come. So I think the players have responded very well. Like you're talking about people like Gil Fiku, Cameron Waukee, these guys. I think they've really enjoyed working with Owen. And Owen's, I think it's been nice for Owen, to be honest, because he's not the captain. He doesn't have to be the captain. He doesn't have to be the player coach because, you know, he and I would be very similar anyway. So we're not fighting a battle between how we're going to play. Freddie Michalak and Joe Rococo both got on well with Owen. Freddie's interesting because you talk about that, and Freddie, and I obviously work with Freddie now. I've worked with Felipe Contepomi when he was at Leinster, and Felipe Contepomi the player and Felipe Contepomi the coach are two actually different people. Felipe is very detail orientated. Freddie's very detail orientated. Amazingly,
Really,
you know, got this
really
creative genius on a rugby pitch, but actually as a coach, is very detail orientated. So I think it's a good mix. Obviously, we've got Nolan Nagare at 9 who brings that creativity. And Nolan's had a shoulder operation, so we've not actually. Nolan's not selected this week for the game, but he's very, very close to selection. So what I'm really looking forward to is the Nolan Nagare Owen Farrell relationship, because Nolan's maybe a little bit different to a traditional English 9, you know, who would obviously give the ball, occasionally make a break. Nolan's all for, you know, exploiting space around the ruck. So that's going to be an interesting combination.
There was a photo of him dressed as a Power Ranger roaming the streets in Paris. I wondered how much you knew about that beforehand.
No. There's some Teletubbies as well. There's a few Power Rangers. It was an initiation for the new players that the current players had set up, and they had a good time in Paris. They did get photos in front of various things. So
for older listeners, what's a Power Ranger?
Not you, Chewy.
Thank you so much. Well, that goes almost without saying.
And very finally, obviously, Farrell's perception in sort of the English public, there was obviously a particularly tricky time around the World Cup. And I think we've had debates on this podcast. I think the media is just as guilty as the general public in cases. But do you think it'll be okay? You know, no matter what, he's never been doubted as a competitor. He's never been doubted as a leader. Do you think, from an English perspective, this may be a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that sort of general favour will come back, or already has come back?
Well, just in answer, you know, I'd say the media drive the English public's perception, and I think the media personally in England are inconsistent. You know, I think they tend to sway one way or another very dramatically, as opposed to hit the balance. And you know, England reached the semi-final of the World Cup. Owen was asked to implement a game plan that Steve put in place that, you know, it's hard to argue with, because they reached the semi-final. And you know, he played 112 times for England. You know, 3 British and Irish Lions tours. You go through what he's done for Saracens. And also, I'll come back to the point about like this notion that Saracens didn't play any sort of like attacking rugby. Like, I watched many of their games, and they're a genuine threat, and Owen would be at the heartbeat of that. So, will England miss him? I think so. But also, England are very lucky in that they've got George and Marcus and Finn Smith coming through as well. So, hopefully, it's the right time, you know. And I think for Owen, in the Johnny Wilkinson sort of time of his career, you know, it's a chance to do something new and try something new, and challenge himself in a different way, in the same way that reason why I left Leinster to come to Racing. It's hard. It's not easy to come to France and try and be successful, you know. So he's not taking an easy route here. But I think it opens up the door for Marcus and Finn and George or whatever to play, and I think that's probably. So I think it's the time's right for all parties, and hopefully England look back at a player who gave everything. And certainly when I watched him play and when England played, like, England would have really suffered without him if he wasn't there. I'm absolutely certain of that.